I had an ability, a gift from God, and I wanted to exploit it. I had to prove something to myself. I wanted to be the best that I possibly can. When you see an open field, the first thing you see is, oh my God, I hope I don't get caught.
How hard do you think it's going to be to say goodbye?
I think it probably be the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone, and this is an Up Close special. He wasn't big by football standards, 5'10", 202 pounds. But Walter Payton, who in 13 years missed only one game, was one of the roughest, toughest competitors who ever lived. No man ever carried the ball more often and for more yardage than Sweetness, but that's just dry stats. He embodied the essence of football. Fight for every yard, fight every day, take nothing for granted. On this program, we'll hear in his own words why we should never take him for granted.
Once you make it up in your mind and in your heart that you want to accomplish something or you want to do something in life, and you dedicate yourself to that, and you won't let yourself accept anything but that, then that's where the drive comes from. That's where the determination and all the hard work, because I felt that I had an ability, a gift from God, and I wanted to exploit it, not for myself, but just to do it because I had it. It was something that was given to me, and it was given to me for a reason. And I just wanted to utilize it the best of my ability.
What I admired about Walter was his competitive spirit. Every time I saw him play, whether it was the first play, or if it was the first run, or if it was the 30th run, it was always the same speed, the same effort, the same determination. I mean, it was a guy that he was just determined to be the best.
You know, I came from as people said, small school that people will kind of scratch their heads about, say, well, they play pretty good football, but if they get into the professional ranks, they might not be able to hold what they're doing. So I had something to prove there. When I came in, I already had something to prove, because people, you know, they had doubts in their mind. Then we showed that we could play with anybody. And after that, I had to prove something to myself. I wanted to be the best that I possibly can, not the best that a former Jim Brown was, or a former Gale Sears, or guys before me. I don't want to reach their level. I want to reach what my level is. If it's below that or beyond that, that's what I'm shooting for.
First of all, before 80% of the game this year, I watched Walter Payton film, and one thing I noticed about him is no matter what, he kept his feet moving. He kept his feet moving, and it would never stop, and I tried to incorporate that into my game, and it really helped me a whole lot. And he was just an overachiever. He was a small guy. Like I said, wasn't the fastest guy, but he made you work to tackle him.
You know, it's funny. I don't think it's running. It's a feeling that you get when you're out there and you're making cuts, or you're making moves, or you're catching passes, or you're just out there. It's sort of like performing, like a ballet or something. The thing I love most about football, and it might seem that it's contradicting itself simply because my job is to evade people and to get the ball down the field, but I enjoy the contact. When somebody's coming up to hit you, if you, in terms, take the lick, the next time he comes in, he's going to say, well, I'm going to hit him a little bit harder, or I'm going to really draw back and get a shot at him. So what you do is you change that by, instead of being hit, you just meet the blow. You know, the law of physics tells you that an object standing still and another object coming, the one that's standing still is going to take the brunt of the blow. Right. But if you guys meet, it's the one who goes the fastest, or the one who's better conditioned, is going to inflict the most pain.
You know, I call Walter a second and third effort football player, running back. You know, because, you know, you hit him, if you don't wrap him up, well, he's going to break it. And he just had that desire to keep going all the time. And as Ricky said, it wasn't the fastest, wasn't the quickest, but, you know, if you didn't hit him, he can go.
When you see an open field, the first thing you see is, oh my God, I hope I don't get caught. That's the first thing that comes in your mind.
When you do that little stutter step, is there a kind of posture in that? I mean, I never noticed it until maybe the last 3-4 years. There's almost kind of an attitude as much as it's a step. I don't know if you agree with that.
I don't think it's an attitude. I think it's a means of survival. In other words, as evolution goes, you learn to adapt certain things to make you survive, and I think that's one of the things I've acquired, simply because when I use that step,
see that step?
What it does for me, it breaks my timing, it breaks my rhythm down, so that the opposing guy that's coming, he can't in other words, when I'm running, he said, well, I'm going to zero him in on ground 2. So I'm coming in, when I get to ground 2, he's got his full head of steam going. But when I take that step, then he has to go, oh my God, I got to recalculate. And so it gives me that edge, because football is a game of angles and seconds. And if you can change the angles, then you got the edge.
When we played them my rookie year, and you know, hearing about Walter Payton, and you know, I was, you know, and you were a rookie, you kind of got your own little arrogant thing going. So I mean, I stood on the sidelines to watch him play. I stood up. I said, I'm gonna stand and watch him play. I want to see him really run the football. And I saw him knock out one of our defensive backs. They brought him to the sidelines, and he didn't know his name. I just thought that was the funniest thing that I had ever seen, because they were the same size.
My aggression, instead of going outward and striking back at somebody else, I don't do that. What I use that to kindle a burning desire inside of me that I already have, to fuel it. And it just gives me that sense that I block out everything. My teammates and the people around me, where I'm playing, the weather, pain, and it's you and me.
Last February, when Walter announced his illness, friends and colleagues found it difficult to comprehend that a man that tough, a man who'd overcome so much, might actually succumb to a rare disease.
When I first heard of it, I was shocked, because here I am, I'm like, well, I got this hip thing going, and he has something that makes my hip look like, oh, I just broke a nail. It's just hard to imagine talking about the Chicago Bears and not speaking of them and Walter in the same sentence.
When we return, sweetness was his nickname, but his road to glory was often bittersweet, as our Walter Payton retrospective continues.
Welcome back to our Walter Payton special. I'm Roy Firestone. Walter went to a small school, Jackson State, and he went most of his career playing for inferior teams. In the first 9 seasons of pro ball, his Bear teams went 9 games under 500. And so opposing teams looked to do only one thing when they played Chicago: stop Payton. They couldn't. Not for long, anyway. He ran the way he felt. Every inch, he was out to prove something.
You almost killed yourself getting there. You and your brother Eddie running along the banks of the Pearl River, that white sand, doing it to such a point that anyone who tried to work out with you collapsed in pain and agony, running steps, running hills, putting yourself into the kind of physical condition that was almost superhuman. I mean, you take a look at this guy's thighs, or if you take a look at his arms, even a year and a half removed from the game, you're a man that was a physical specimen that truly unmatched. It was a pride thing, but it was a drive. I want to know if anywhere there was a fear, not necessarily the fear of failure, but the fear of not making the best of what you had.
You always realize that deep back in your mind that you have something, and it's a possibility that it could go on to higher places. And then once you start on that journey, you know, there's always the fear of failure. There's always the fear of something happening to offset what you're shooting for. And with me, I don't think it was any different. I had those feelings also, because once you reach a certain level and you achieve certain things and you want to go beyond that, it's always frightening, you know, opening another door, going into a different dimension.
There is that driving force, and there always has been, as we said, and we've been saying throughout the show, about being the best. I remember the year you lost the rushing title to OJ, and you broke down and you wept.
Yeah.
You don't see that among professional athletes. Oh, well, I did my best, and but you were like your heart was out on the sleeve.
Well, that's how competitive I am, and you know, it was an opportunity, and I guess at that particular time it was just not in the cards for me, because I ended up twisting my ankle, and I guess everything happens for a reason. And the next year I came out a little bit more determined and a little bit more aggressive, and things happened the way they're supposed to. But like I said, maybe if I'd have won the rushing title that year, maybe it would have changed me to a point where I wouldn't be the person I am now. But like I said, I'm happy that things worked out the way they did.
There's always been a debate about the nickname, Sweetness. Did it come because of his sweet running style or his sweet personality? And where did it come? Did it come in college or high school or before that?
It came right before my professional career, when we were playing in the postseason college bowl games. And a couple of guys, Reeve Sori, who was going with the Bears, and Bob Avellini, and well, at that particular time, you know, it was like as the times go, there are certain sayings like "all right," and at that particular time, the saying was, "Oh, how sweet it is! Oh, that's sweet."
Sweet it is.
So some of the moves that I would make in practice and kidding around, people would say, that was a sweet move." And after we got through practicing, we'd go in to the hotels and like see me walking around in the lobby, and for lack of anything else to call, they think about the move. Hey, sweetness, and then
There is a couple of theories about why Walter Payton doesn't return back to Columbia, Mississippi, or very often get back home. One is your dad. Your dad died tragically in jail after being picked up on a drunk driving charge. I think he had a stroke or
a brain hemorrhage.
Brain hemorrhage. That you always quietly resented, stated or unstated, the racism there. That you felt that it cost your father his life. True?
No, I think the reason that it happened, well, it cost him his life, was because it was a small town and people were not aware as to certain things. Like when you have a brain hemorrhage, what it does, the first thing that goes is your motor skills, and it makes you appear to be as if that you're intoxicated. But if someone at that particular time would have known that and been more advanced as far as their technology and procedures, they probably would have knew that. But because of that, that was it. It wasn't a case of racism or whatever thing. It was just a small town atmosphere with people who just really didn't know.
Why don't you get back then?
Well, my mom moved away from Columbia. She lives in Jackson, and she's the light of my life, and so that's where it ends now.
Up next, the field of dreams off the field. Walter Payton's other success stories as our Walter Payton retrospective continues.
Welcome back. You look back at the ledger of his life and you're sure of one thing. Walter Payton would have been a success in anything he did, and he did many things away from football. He was an entrepreneur. He owned a race car, restaurants, dozens of enterprises. I talked to him about his view of success.
Yeah, football, life, and business, they're so closely related. It's unbelievable. I can remember we're in the same situations when I was playing with the Bears. We had just lost to the Houston Oilers 40-0. We had to win the last 7 games to even think about getting into the playoffs. And believe it or not, we did. We won all 7 games. We got into the playoffs. And that's a lesson, because even though you're down, don't give up, because once you submit, then anything can happen to you. But if you keep on fighting and keep your focus, you can always win. And that's the key thing. Don't ever give up.
There's a story that when you were in first grade, you were in line, a little kid, and you couldn't stand the idea you had to wait in line.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go already, let's go. And finally you started to run ahead of the line, and the big boys were chasing you to try to calm you down, and you gave them the little stutter step.
Yeah.
And that's where the stutter step was born, right? Is that true?
Well, it didn't come into prominence until the NFL.
Yeah, but that was the beginning, huh?